What's up, everyone? We got a good podcast. It is a part two. So I just did a podcast on writing resumes better, and someone commented in on Facebook, one of my friends, and they asked or they recommended to do a podcast on nailing interviews, which was a really good point of feedback, which I should have realized earlier because it's a really good second part of writing effective resumes. Right, the second part of that is now being able to be in an interview and crush it. So this is what this podcast is all about. I hope you enjoy it. Please remember to hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date on other content like this. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with your friends and family so they can also get some tips that I share here. And just hope you guys enjoy it. All right, what's going on, everyone? We're talking how to nail an interview, and so we did our first part. We did how to build effective resumes or how to write better resumes. One of my friends asked, or had a good recommendation on now doing a follow-up video on how to nail an interview. So now here we are. I'm going to give my perspective on some key parts of where I think it's important to focus on when you're in an interview, based on my experience, based on all of the things that I have researched and read up on. But mainly, this is I would say mainly this is coming also from me being a hiring manager and the things that I look for when I go on interviews and how I approach them. So I hope that my perspective here will give some valuable information for you guys. I always welcome comments and feedback in the comment section, so please do add them if you have a different perspective. I'd love to hear it. If you've had different experience, I'd love to hear it. So always do that. And so there are going to be, let's say let's keep this to 5 main points I want to make. One is you're going to need to make yourself into a story, and I'll explain that. 2 is you need to be enthusiastic. 3, you need to answer questions in depth. 4, you need to show that you're organized. 5, I'll just summarize the key things that I always look for as a hiring manager. And so let's get into the first part. First part is your life is a story and you need to make it into a story. And there's 3 components to that. There is your past situation, your current situation, and your future. And you need to have those figured out before you get into the interview. So you have an organized mind and what you want to say. So when I say your past, you need to have a really good idea of your past experience, right? I think you should already know that, but you need to understand the highlights that you want to talk about. And in my previous podcast, when I talked about writing effective resumes, I said that you need to steer away from just writing what you've done at the job, your job responsibilities, and you need to move more towards what you've accomplished. So instead of I coordinated with X team and Y team, I managed this campaign, I did this, you need to say, I increased revenue 50% year over year. I received an award for being creative. You need to show accomplishments and not job responsibilities. So when you're talking about your past, right, when you're in your story and you're talking about your past, it can't only be here's what I have literally done. Here's my job responsibilities. That won't stand out to anyone. And just like I said in writing resumes, how responsibilities won't stand out to recruiters, your responsibilities definitely won't stand out to hiring managers. Those are the expectations that they would have for you. Yes, you need to have done this you need to have certain qualifications, certain background to get a job. I get that. But you're probably playing on a level playing field with everyone else who has similar background. So you look like everyone else. You sound like everyone else if you just talk about your responsibilities. So your past, you need to figure out what are the key, maybe it's like one key thing per job. Come to the table with 3 to 5 really proud moments of each of either a project, either a class, a past job, an accomplishment that you're proud of. Try to bring 5. And this way, when you're in a interview, it's not just, yeah, I was the project coordinator and I helped coordinate the time. I managed this campaign to completion. You sound like a robot. You need to say, I was the project coordinator and I reduced our time 20%, or I completed the project 20% earlier, or I completed it before any other teams. I'm talking about if, maybe you're in a class and you did a project. It just needs to be results focused. Come to the table with 5 results that you can talk about, you can highlight, make sure to highlight them. And this way you sound better than everyone else. You don't just sound like a robot who has done day-to-day tasks, which is, again, it's a given that you have to be doing that. Hiring managers want you to obviously do the day-to-day tasks, but now they need to show, where are you driving the business forward? What do you bring to the table outside of, you can just do the basic responsibilities of this job? So that's past in your story. Your current. So now this is a good one. So for your current, I think the perspective from people who are interviewing others is, maybe not always, but there's a tendency to think that you're moving from one job to another for 2 reasons. One is probably it's for more money or a higher position. Or 2, you're running from something, you don't like the company anymore, you had a fallout with your boss, whatever the case is. And so you need to just, early on, probably the first thing you say to break that initial assumption, you need to just break through that and give a real reason why you're moving. And it needs to be not that you're running from something. It needs to be that you're running towards something. No one likes to hire someone who's running from something. So what I'm going to talk about here in the story is your past, current, and then I'll talk about the future. But, that means in the past, you're going to be talking about highlights, great accomplishments that you have. In the future, we're going to be talking about the goals and what you're looking for moving forward. If you do it right, you'll position yourself to sound like a super goal result oriented person who everyone would want to hire and everyone would want to keep. So now you have to start thinking, okay, if I'm this good of a person, why in my current company aren't I getting promoted? Why am I not happy in my current role? If I'm doing all these great things, I should be getting the opportunity to do so, etc. You just need to make sure that perception or the assumptions of that hiring manager doesn't come to be that you're running from something. And so make the point of And the question usually is like, what are you looking for here at this company? Why are you leaving your current role? You just need to have a very good statement for what you're saying here. And it should be focused on the role that you're interviewing for. What about that role really interested you that you can't do at your current position? Because again, you're going to talk about goals you want to have moving forward and all these great accomplishments. Why can't you do that at your current position? So it needs to be something unique to the current role, whether that is the technology that the company has that is superior in the industry. Maybe they're really well known for having a great work environment, and maybe your current company doesn't have that. It just needs to be very clear that you're running towards something and not running away from it. That'll scare people, because if you're running away from something, usually it chases you. You're not gonna, you'll realize after you work for a handful of companies that people are people who are people. I don't care where the hell you work. And obviously some organizations are different. You have great leaders in some and not in others. So yeah, that's also something to keep in mind. So I get that. But for the most part, if you're running from something, there's the question mark of, will this happen again here? Are they running from something? They had a bad relationship with their team. Well, what makes you think that that's going to be any different here? They don't like their boss. How do I know they're not going to like me as a boss? So don't position it as you're running from something, but you're running towards something, and towards has to be something unique about that new position you're going towards. That's current. Future. So in the future, now what I like to do, which I don't see many people do in job interviews, but what I like to do if I'm in a job interview is I talk future. And not just, when I say that, I don't just mean, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I get that's a common question. I sometimes ask that question, so I understand the reason behind it. You want to understand where this person sees himself, what goals are going to put forward to get there, and you want to make sure that's in alignment with what the position is and where your expectations are for this person. But I'm not even referring to that. I'm referring to when I go in an interview, I write down 3 to 5 goals that I would have coming into that position. And I write specific actions for how I get there. And I'm actually going to do another podcast on how I set goals. It's called the 5 3s, right? 5 goals, 3 action items to get to that goal. But I essentially apply a very similar template to when I'm doing a job interview. And when I'm talking to the person, I say, here is what I would want to accomplish if I was in this role. And I give them timelines. In the first 3 months, I want to do bop, bop, bop. In the next 6 months, I would want to do here, boom, boom, boom. And it's very clear. And to them, that shows, it's like future pacing. Like, oh, if I put this person in this position, I already have an idea of the things they would go after. And usually with a little research, you could understand pretty well if the goals will be in alignment with what they're looking for. And even if they're not 100% perfectly in alignment, it at least shows the person that you are goal-oriented. When you get into that position, you're not just going to exist. You're going to try to make improvements and drive the business forward, and that's the main point. So 2 things. It's one, it's either perfectly on point with what they're looking for, and it's great. Or 2, it's not perfectly on point, but they are inspired and they love the fact that you're thinking already of how to drive improvements in what they're doing. And that's what hiring managers are looking for. They want people who can help them drive things forward and not just exist in a role. So that's my first point is you need to tell a really good story. You need to have your past experience down and come to the table with 5 really impactful, most proud moments that in areas that you have accomplishments in. 2, you need to have the current position figured out. Why are you leaving? You're running towards something. Well, what is that? Is it because you love the company's CEO? Or what about the technology, the people that you've heard? What about that current position are you so interested in going towards? And then your future, come to the table with 5 goals that you would put forward with exact timing and the actions that you would take to get those goals accomplished. Um, and and that's telling your story. What that might be half the that's probably half the battle, if not more. 70% of the battle. You get that down, you will impress your hiring manager and anyone you talk to. It'll show, wow, this person is results focused because they've accomplished things outside of just doing their job responsibilities, which I already expect them to be doing. So it's not really that big of a deal if they're doing their job responsibilities. But wow, they cut time in half. They saved the company money. They've won an award. They've done X, Y, and Z, and they've accomplished all this. Okay, great. History is their past experience on point. Now you got to say, okay, well, are they leaving for some reason that's going to happen here anyway? No, because what they're excited about is the tech that we have at this company is superior, and they want to be the one to help drive that forward and make it more mainstream, whatever. Okay, so they're not running from something. That's awesome. Now, forward looking, and when they come into this position, they already have 5 goals they're going to put forward with specific actions that they would be taking in order to accomplish those goals with exact times. It's like, if I hear all that, it's like, huh, why the hell wouldn't I hire that person? Because not many other people are, maybe most people get the past and current down, but when past, they just talk about responsibilities. They don't really talk about results. So most people don't get this story down correctly or as effective. And if you do, you'll be top of the notch. You'll probably be considered top 3 candidates, if not higher, because no one else, for the most part, is approaching it like this. So that's the main point. More than half the battle, I would say, get your story straight. Second piece is you need to be enthusiastic, and no one wants to put someone on their team that is going to drown the energy out and make people not want to work there anymore. So when I interview people, it's almost like a requirement for me. If I even sense that the person doesn't want to be on the call with me or in an in-person interview, if the person doesn't want to be there, or I don't feel that they're really committed to wanting to be in this role, I almost don't care how much experience they have and what they've accomplished. I don't want them on the team. I feel they're going to drain the energy. I don't even feel they want to be in the position. I don't feel they want to even be talking with me. And maybe someone's just having a bad day. I'm not really sure. But if you don't bring enthusiasm to an interview, I think you're going to have a hard time becoming top candidates for that role. And it's something, as a hiring manager, I look for very specifically. So that's 2, be enthusiastic. 3, answer questions in depth. This is something that when I was especially younger, I was so bad at. And I look back at it now and I'm like, how could you be so stupid? And so when I say answer questions in depth, it's something like, if you do reporting at your current job and someone says, okay, so do you do reporting? You don't just say, oh yeah, our team does reporting. We do weekly reporting to the client. or something. That you need to use that's a very bad way to answer the question. Every question needs to be in depth, as much as you possibly can in depth, where you can highlight, again, you take the going back to your story, wherever you can, you need to sprinkle in those past accomplishments, but also answer things in depth. And so if someone were to ask you a question, it's, yeah, oh yes, we do that. We do that weekly with the client. Here's how we do it. Here's what we've done. Here's the improvements we made. And you go into detail. If you don't go into detail, it's a surface level answer. When I get surface level answers, the interview usually goes very quickly because they answer every question in sort of a sentence or two, and I can't really understand whether they're proficient in what I'm asking them. I sometimes I try to tease it out of them, so I try to ask more and more and more, but it's usually just one or two sentence answers, and it's very difficult for me as a person to understand if they're actually proficient or not in what I'm asking. And so you need to take the opportunity for every question and use that to highlight your past experience, but highlight the things that you're really good at and go into depth whenever you can. You don't have to go into the very, very nitty gritty bullshit. I get that, but if there's levels of detail, you can't just be at the top. You have to at least go one or two down. So that's answering questions in depth. Last part I always look for is show that you're organized. And when I say that, I look for a couple things specifically. I want to know two things. Time, how do they manage their time effectively? And two, the tasks that could be due or the responsibilities that need to be done. How do they manage all of that? Because, yeah, it's we live in a world where we can just either one, you might be just really busy in your current role or any job you're in. Two, you might fill yourself up with a lot of busy work. I'm not sure how you prioritize your work. Three, I guess this is a component of one, but if you have so much work to do, how do you prioritize it and manage expectations? So I generally just want to know, how do you organize yourself? Do you use a calendar? And how do you use the calendar to manage your time? Do you block off certain time to work on something? Do you use it to remind yourself of an important meeting so you don't forget? How do you use your task list? Do you use it just a standard to-do list? How do you use it? Do you write in the top 5 things you need to get done today? I just generally want to know that if I give you a whole bunch of responsibilities that involved managing meetings and times with internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, and you have a handful of tasks that need to be done in any given week, some have to be pushed back, some have to be prioritized. I just want to know if you can handle that in an organized way, because if you're not organized, you won't be prepared for important meetings because you just may not even remember they're on the calendar. You might have too much on your plate in a given week, and you might not it's not that you don't maybe not know, but you just don't handle well prioritizing. So you have 10 things due in 1 week and you can only handle 5. You need to communicate with those people on the 5 that you can't get them done this week and you have to prioritize. Those aren't very difficult things, but I just need to know that you can do those. And so that's staying organized. And that's for the 5th point, and I'll just wrap it up. The 5th point is, it's not a point, but let's wrap it up with the top things for a hiring manager for me that I look for. Again, I'd love to hear what other people look for. I think these are pretty common because it's just, they just seem like common sense type of things, but I'd love to hear others. If there's other thoughts, I'd love to hear it. Here are the top things to look for. One, that you can communicate effectively, and that can mean many things, but you really in the interview, are you explaining very clearly, concisely what you've done and where you're headed? A lot of the things that I mentioned in your story, I'll be able to understand if you communicate effectively. What have you accomplished and the highlights of it? If you can like be results focused and tell me not just the minutia of what you've done every day, which I sort of don't really care about, but you're able to take that and say, done this, but here's what it's translated to into results. I take that as communicating effectively. And if you can just speak clearly and I can understand very well your story, your accomplishments, what you're looking for, then I could say, okay, well, if I put this person in a meeting or if we communicate together, I would be very clear on what they're talking about. If I don't, then I start to say, I don't even know what the hell this person just told me the past half hour. Communicate effectively. That's one. Two, I said this already, stay organized. I want someone who's organized. Three, someone who's willing to learn and take on new challenges. So a lot of the times I like to ask people, like, name a time that you had to do something new that you've never done before. How did you approach it? What was the result? And I just want to see that if I throw someone into a project that they have no experience with, will they be able to be resourceful enough to do research, ask people, ask for help to do the project, even though they have no experience? Because that happens all the time. You need to be able to do new things. Or you become a dinosaur really quickly. I don't care what industry you're in. I always say that I'm in advertising. Advertising is an industry that moves. The bells and whistles move fast. New technology, new regulations that you always have to keep up with, browser updates that you have to keep in mind. And this all affects how you distribute ads to people. Even though the core of advertising hasn't changed for a while. When I say the core of like the main strategy of like how you message to people and all that stuff, but there has been a lot of changes in how you do that messaging. But I guess what I'm saying is it's not just advertising. I can see that happening in almost every industry. And so I just would like to know you can learn new things, you're willing to learn new things, and you're able to learn new things, and you're up for it. So that's something I look for. I already mentioned this, but I look for enthusiasm. I need that. I need enthusiasm. Last two is goal-oriented and results-oriented. I need to know that you think bigger picture. You think that your actions have larger results, larger consequences that actually have results. So if you spend too much time on a task, and this is going back again to resume writing. It's like you stay so focused on responsibilities, you don't realize that responsibility is leading to a business impact, and you need to be able to connect the two. So just be able to connect the two shows me that you're like results focused. If I do this input, here's the output. Input, output. Be results focused, and then goal oriented. I need to know that you have things you're working towards in the next year or two at least, and you have specific actions that you are going to be taking to make those things a reality. Because someone without goals is just a boat in the water without a rudder. You aren't working towards anything. You aren't productive. You don't improve things. You don't drive the business forward. You don't drive yourself forward. You just wither away, and people who wither away drive motivation down. Motivation goes down. Everything goes downhill from there. So there's probably more, but those are the top 6 things I look for, okay? Communicate effectively, stay organized, you're willing to learn, you're enthusiastic, goal-oriented, and results-focused. And do all those things, and you nail an interview, I guarantee it. So that is my perspective on nailing an interview. Get your story straight. That's 1. 2, be enthusiastic. 3, answer questions at a deeper level than just a surface level. 4, show you're organized. And the last point I just showed is that those are the top things that I look for are communicate, organized, willing to learn, enthusiastic, goal-oriented, results-focused. Do all those things and you nail your interview 100%. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that if you have a upcoming interview, you can use these tools. I hope you already know these tools. If you already know, if this podcast was just telling you things you already know, then good for freaking you. You already know your thing. If you didn't, I hope this helped. So we'll be doing more podcasts on topics like this where I just try to share my perspective. And if I can't, then I'm going to be bringing other people on to talk on the podcast. We have bookings coming up, so I'm really happy about that. And we'll continue to keep posting at least once a week. So hit that notification bell to stay up to date on my channel. Hit the subscribe button. Share this with your friends and family if you found it was helpful, because if it was helpful for you, I'm hoping it will be helpful for others. And have a good rest of your day. Until then, I'll see you next time.